Welcome back, my beautiful people. Yeah, in this clip or section, we are going to install Axios. Axios is a JavaScript data fetching library. So we are going to use it to interact with our backend. Now, the first thing we need to do is to first install Axios. So to install Axios in our replit, we go to shell, then we write npm I then install. So I hit enter key. Our Axios is ready, as you can see. The next thing we need to do now is to go to our component, then our file, register. Let me open it in another tab first. Then we want to write inside this our create function. So we need to write the configuration of Axios. So let's do that now. So the next thing we need to do now, so I will import the Axios. I say import Axios from Axios is supposed to be a string. So that's that. So the next thing I'll need to do now inside my component, let me get the URL. I will first declare a variable called URL, and let's set this to an empty string first. So after that, inside our create account function, so let's have this one to be async. Then we write our wait Axios dot post. This is going to be post request. Then we have our URL here. After which we have a JSON dot stringify. Convert our object to JSON. So everything we need to send everything to be in JSON format. So now our variable here, which is email, have a email, then email. Then the next one have a username, and the third one have a first name. Since we have both the variable and the data that we want to send to the servers as same, then we can have so as ES is shut down. So the last one we have here is a last name. So that's it. Then after that we say then response, then it is in a arrow format. First thing I need to do, let me have another use state here. Post. Let's have this post, then set post. Then the response set post. So to update our initial state, the response dot data. Then if there is error, then we use cache, then function error, so log error. All right, so that's it about our Axios configuration. So I think okay, we already set our on-click handler. So the next thing we need to do now is to work on our backend. So to work on our backend, let me log in. So as you can see now, I've successfully logged in into the server. So what I need to do now, let me go to file management. Then, so we are in the file manager now. I will now click on MVC. When I click on it, then I go to view. Then I can now create a file, and I will name it insertion at php.php. Then I will click on create new file. Then our file is successfully created. So let me look at, as you can see, this is insertion react php.php. So let me open the file. Let me edit it. I'll click on edit, then edit. All right, the file is now opened. Let's go back to our file manager. So what I need to talk about now is just to go to include here, the include folder, to introduce you to a few functionalities in the framework that I'm using now. So this is a db.php. So this is our database configuration file. So that's it. Then this is a config.php. Then we have a class.sum.php. So this is our class for object-oriented programming. So as you can see, there are a few functionalities that we are going to be making use of in this class. There are a few functions like well, we have a DB row. Let me search for it. DB row. So this is the function, as you can see here now. So this is for fetching single row. So this function is for fetching single row. Then if we want to fetch many rows in array format, then this is not a this one will return a array, not object. So you can see this function now. Then the next one to detect if there is error. Those are the few functionalities. So there are many functions in the class. So that's just little introduction about the class and the functionalities that we will be using in our clip, in this particular clip. So let me go back to our file now. The first thing I will need to do, let me have our PHP at first. Then the first thing I will do now is to have our OB clean. Then exit, or you can write die, whichever one you prefer. So let me go back to our front end, which is our React. So the next thing we need to do now is to copy this URL and go to our front end. This variable URL, the empty string we created earlier on, paste it. Then the name of our file, which is let me see. Okay, we have a React insertion react.php, and I will have it and paste it here. So the extension won't be included. So that's it for that aspect. So let me go back to the insertion react php file. So if we should use a global variable, let's say for instance I want to send a email being entered by the user. This email, for instance, let's say normally if we use a php global variable like post, for instance, and then we have a email here, email, for instance, let me say dollar email. If we should use a PHP global variable dollar underscore post, for instance, then the request will fail because we want to receive JSON string as post data. To receive a JSON string, what we can use is to use the file get content and use PHP colon double forward slash input. Sorry, and then we place this inside the file underscore get content. Then we can name this dollar input and terminate it. So this input column double forward slash input reads according to PHP documentation. This is a read-only stream that allows us to read raw data from the request body. So this allows us to, as in this, what we have here inside this string allows us to read raw data. While the file gets content, what we have here, sorry, it should be file gets content, is used to read the file into string. And then the next thing we need to do here is to have our post variable, then it's equal to JSON underscore decode. What is a built-in function or inbuilt function rather? What it does is that it takes a JSON string and converts it into a PHP variable that may be an array or an object. So if you want this to be in an array, then the second parameter will be true, while the first parameter will be the variable we have here. So this raw data that we get from our front end, then in order for us to have access to array, then we use true. But if we want an object, then we remove this second parameter. But since I'm expecting array, so I'm going to leave this second parameter. I'm going to include this second parameter, which is true. So the next thing we need to do now is to work on our validation, form validation from the backend. So now to work on our validation, I'm going to declare an array. I will say array, then I will now use the conditional statement. If before that, let me have a, okay, we already have our email here. We can now say if empty email, that is if the user as they interact with the form and the user never input anything in our input feed, then this error should be reported. So let's have this so that the user will know that, oh, I've not filled this particular feed. So what we are going to do now is to have our array, and we have a status. The status is either success or error. For this one now, we expect a error to be reported back to the user, and then the message. So we have a array, then the message. Let's have our message this way should be please enter email. Just a simple validation, but as you are working with your form, in case if you want to do something on maybe a live project that you want, so you should also validate if the email is correct or not. Then we say as if empty username or username. If the user forgets to input his or her username, then this error will show as the user clicks the button. Then have this copy the error status and the message that we have here. The message should be please enter surname. Then have as if also the user never input the first name, the first name, then uh, have a let's see empty. Then we expect this error that user will know that, oh, see, I've forgotten to input your first name. So you can do that for the rest of the form, like a last name and the rest. So the next thing, if all these conditions, none of them, if there is no error, and for instance, if the user fills all the fields, then if everything is correct, then the S aspect, excuse me, the S aspect, then we can now insert directly into our database. So we have a SQL, then we have a insert into registration. Let me go back to our database, to our php my admin. Okay. All right. This is our database now, and we have users. This is the name of the table there. So we have this table. So what we do next now is to go back to our file here. So we have as underscore users. This as underscore user. That's how the framework I'm using. That's how it's been designed. Before you write the name of your table, you have to include that as underscore users as underscore registrations for security purpose. Then we have our feeds here now. So the first one here, we have a username. Let me have this here. We have a username, and email. Oh, password. Do we even have a password in our front end? I don't think so. Don't think we have a password. Oh, we don't have a password. So we can let us quickly include that. So password, let's have a password. Then have a password, and then here is password set password. Then our state variables should be um, on this back to capital letter P, and we have our P here, letter also set post. Then we have our password as a state variable. Password, password set password. Okay, so I think that's it for that aspect. So let's go back to our backend now. Then I think the next one is password, password, then email. Oh, name first. So name, we are going to have a name. Yeah, first first name, neat, then string, neat, last name. Then have our last name here, last, last. Then we can now have our name and email. Just exactly what we have here. So let's try to identify our password. So, oh, we've not even created our password here. So let's have our password. Say password, password, then now have password, then defined, defined, defined. Then we have this. So we go for define built-in function. Then here we have values. So we have a string here. The first one, which is username, username, password, name, our name here, and our email. So we now say if $sum db query. This db query is another function in our class. Let's search for it here. db query. Okay. So this is the function in our class. So this is the db query. So let's go back to our file. So it accepts one parameter. So here now we have the argument to be $SQL. So if some DB query, if it's true, that is, if everything is successful, then we now have our message and status to be success. Then we can say account successfully created. Yeah. Then we now say echo JSON underscore encode. Code then our array here, whatever we have in our array, that's what we to our front end, which is our React. So I think that's all we need to do. Just a simple form, stuff. So let's go back to our front end here. Oh, we haven't even saved the file. Let's save it first. So while it's saving, let's go to our front end. Then let's try to run our code first. Let's go to down. Let me try to refresh again. Let me run. Okay, seems we are having some errors here. Okay, it's saying create account. Okay, line 18. Okay, let me try to remove this aspect first. Let me run it again. I think it's complaining about our Axios import. Let me remove this first. All right, so I think our Axios, we are having challenge with that. So let's try to install Axios once again. We go to shell npm Axios. Let me say import Axios from Axios. Okay. All right. Let's go back to our button on click. Have a create account. So we can have a sync. Then we have a wait. Let me remove this first. Let me change this to function declaration first and see what's really happening here. Yes, this one is function. Async. Wait. Right. Okay, I think everything set. Now let's interact with our button. Let me copy it one. I have it. Let me use this tab. Okay, if I show, oh, sorry, let me go back to our front end and have a curly braces here. Then we have posts status that is what we have here. This is our status here. What we have here, if is equal to error, then our array will be updated to the message, the status and the message. That is, we have the status to be error and message to be please enter email. For instance, if the email feed is not filled up by the user, and if it's successful, that is everything goes well, the data is successfully inserted into the database, then the message should be account successfully created. Then the array will be updated with the current information we have. So let's go back and have our conditional statement. So if it's equal to error, that is the status is equal to error, sorry, error, then update ternary operator. Then we now have a, let's say is 3. Let me use it for. Then we have another curly braces. We have posts dot message msg. Let's have our class name to be w3 text red is a class in our w3 css library. Then we have the x aspect. So if we have any error, the status is equal to error, then we have any of these error messages being displayed and our array will be updated. So now the x aspect, let me copy this again. That is, if our status is equal to process, then the what we have here should be green. That is to show successful. So that is it. We need to fill up and see how everything works. But before that, let me try to have a console log here to see everything in display our browser console. So now having done that, let me go back to where we want to test everything and let me just go to inspect, then console, have some error. Let me clear this. So let me first interact with the button first without filling anything. Let me click here. You can see here we have please enter email in red color. Then if you look at our console here, we have a status to be error and our message to be please enter email. Then let me try to fill something. Let me have this email, then have this, just have something random here, and then let me click and see our status is equal to success, the message account successfully created. Let's go back to database and see. Let me refresh the database, I mean the table. You can see Caesar, then what we actually inputted into our form. Let me go back again and let me try to, and you can see the text also is green to show that the action was actually successful, what we were trying to do. Then let me remove the email first once again and see. You can see it turns to red. Then we have a error. Our status is equal to error. Then message please enter email. Let me have this and remove, let's say the user forgot to input his or her username. Let me click on enter
the register button. We have a please enter username, and you can see it from our console. You can see that we have a error and the status to be error and the message please enter username. And if you should go to our database, then nothing should be included in our database table. So you can see, but let me try to make it successful again. Let me just put a Caesar here, Caesar, and click. Then we should have a successful message. So we have a success. You can see account successfully created. Let's go to our database now and see. We should have the second. Yeah, you can see Caesar. Then the email we entered. So that's pretty much how to go about it. So being able to see how we can send data to our PHP web server, and then from there insert data into our database from our React. We use React as front end, of course. So that is pretty much how we can go about it. So in case you find the video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. Thank you once again for watching. See you in the next clip.